Back, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu are on high alert as cyclone Migjom has made landfall. Very heavy rainfall and strong winds continue to lash several parts of both the states. 17 deaths have been reported because of rain-related incidents in Chennai. The wind speeds have reached severe cyclonic levels with a maximum sustained speed of 90 to 100 kilometers per hour. High alert has been issued in 8 districts in Andhra Pradesh. The Tamil Nadu government has declared a public holiday in 4 districts. It's also deployed rescue teams on the ground. Even actor Amir Khan needed to be rescued from a place in the outskirts of Chennai where he was stuck. But in both the states, the urban infrastructure has been paralyzed, roads have been submerged, cars are flowing on top of roads like they are rivers. There are threats of electrocution. Power lines have been down for the last 30 hours plus. This has evoked memories of the 2015 Chennai floods, which spread havoc, and it begs the question, have we not learnt any lessons whatsoever? Suman C. Raman, political analyst, joining us. Vivek Menon is a civic expert. Suman, I believe you were also affected. Your house had some water in it, at least in the ground floor part of it. Again, 8 years from what happened in 2015, it seems like the same story all over again. It seems like no lessons have been learned.
Zaka, very little has changed. I don't think, what if we have learned any lessons, then they have not been, acted upon. I was one of the very lucky ones, to be quite honest, in the sense that we live in an area which is relatively higher up, so there is no problem. But, even in my place, there was water which came into the ground floor. The point really is, Zaka, in 2015, and this would have been so much worse, had the Adyar river not been widened to handle a larger capacity, this could even have been worse. That was done about 4 or 5 years ago after the 2015 episode. But the point is, a lot of money is claimed to have been spent on stormwater drains in the city. Right now, as we speak, there are several areas where water is still, at a significant height, where people are not able to come out of houses and so on. So clearly, this is not a blame game of this government, previous government, whichever government is in power. Somebody needs to take responsibility for the mess that happens. This is the second time in 8 years. And, in some areas, the flooding was even more than what it was in previous occasions. And that we have on record some of the people actually saying that. So I think that, there are 2-3 issues. One, water bodies have been massively encroached on and buildings have been put up. Entire colonies have come up on what was lakes, which we have seen in many cities throughout India, many metropolitan cities. But it's not just that. I think that suburban parts of the city, many parts, suburban areas do not have stormwater drains at all. So a combination of apathy, corruption, by which these people have been allowed to build on virtually anywhere and everywhere. And I thought that the apt photograph which sort of symbolized this whole thing was a board of a real estate company, which was probably about 6 feet or 5-6 feet in height. And today somebody had put it out on Twitter. It was only the name of the real estate company and plots available for sale here, which was visible. The rest of it was all underwater, about 5.5 feet of water. And surrounding that, the entire expanse was virtually a lake. So I think that there are a lot of...
Menon, I think there are some very common sense solutions to this. It's not like this is rocket science required to fix these problems. And we've seen this in Bangalore last year. Large parts of the outer ring road completely flooded out. Now we're seeing this in Chennai. Stormwater drain clearance, it's the job of the municipal corporation. I don't see why they don't do it year after year and we have this situation. 2, builders, politicians, leading to building construction happening on riverbeds. That's a harder problem to deal with. But again, it's not a problem that we are unfamiliar with. We've seen that in Bengaluru on the lake beds. We're seeing that in Chennai as well. Why is it that no one takes the initiative, the political initiative to do this? Or is it just that urban voters can be taken for granted? They're anyway 2, 3, 5% of the vote. Much of the vote is outside the big urban centers. So why not take them for granted?
Well, I think, the larger problem here, Zaka, is that, there's absolutely no liability attached to any of this. Right. And I think that's where the larger problem lies, because with civic agencies today, especially when you look at with any city for that matter, The problem is that most of these officials, even probably the commissioners, whether they're of the BBMP or of any parastatal, have absolutely no accountability or liability. They come in, they do their job. If they fail, they just moved out. They play musical chairs, and hence there's absolutely no real analysis that's ever done. And in addition to that, of course, the fact of the matter is that there's so much of corruption in all of this that stormwater drains are encroached upon, which you just mentioned, and I think it continues over a period in time. Now, if there's some amount of liability which the courts can step in and actually enforce, I think things will change. And in the absence of that, in the United States too, Chennai, unfortunately, is at sea level. So there obviously has to be greater interventions, other than, of course, cities like Bangalore, which obviously sit on, much higher plateaus, and where the water can actually drain off. But in a city like Chennai, if you do not do a complete analysis and figure out that you really need detention ponds, especially when there's new construction that happens, everybody has to detain this water before it actually gets out into the common drains.
Yeah.
In the absence of that, you're going to find this consistently happening. So there have to be, flood maps that have been created. And these could be done by, any agency that's probably in charge of actually flood mitigation. And in the United States, FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, actually does this. So there are flood maps that are created. You know the flood-prone areas, and you work towards basically alleviating that through
I think
analysis.
Vivek has a point, Sumant. If you look at the parts of Chennai which are flooded this time around, I think and you have a map of the parts of Chennai that were flooded in 2015. I think it's more or less the same, and everybody knows it. The low-lying areas, the Pallikarnai Marsh area, Velachery area, the banks of the Adayar Creek. These are the same parts that got flooded last time around as well. What then changed between 2015 and 2023?
Zaka, you must know that there is not just one report. There are several reports of multiple expert committees which have analyzed and provided multiple solutions, potential solutions to solve the issues. Some of these, quote unquote, are apparently have been acted upon, though the results don't show that show on the ground. See, the problem is very simple. Now, if you are going to have accountability, as Mr. Menon says, I think that will help. There's been huge damage to public property, basically the private citizens' property.
Yeah.
Houses after houses, the ground floor, almost everything is gone. Cars, hundreds and hundreds of cars have been completely damaged in all of this. While at least for the cars, there will be an element of insurance. What about the household goods?
Exactly.
How many will be able to claim insurance? And the government's liability is nothing. In fact, the politicians will be licking their lips in the anticipation of the aid which is going to be given, because that is really not accounted for very well, because it has to be distributed in a quick period of time. So there is no need to go for the usual tendering process for distributing this emergency aid. So
but did you see, Sumant, one of the big criticisms in the 2015 floods was the elected representatives, public representatives were not out on the streets with the people and helping them, at least in the initial day or two. Did you see that at least being different this time around?
No, this time let us give the government its due, that the public representatives, particularly some of the key ministers and others and MLAs, were on the ground. No doubt about that. Okay. Having said that, the net result of that has not significantly yet. In fact, as we speak, Zaka, there are several areas where the power supply is yet to be restored.
Correct.
And it stopped raining by around 8:39 last night. So we're 24 hours post-event. Water has not drained in many areas. Some people are still stuck on the first floors of their houses. Many of the boat rescue people, some of them have been rescued by boats. Some of them have not yet been rescued. So they're waiting for rescue. There are frantic SOSs going around on social media, even now, saying, please help elderly people here. And there's been no milk supply in most parts of the city today through the government milk channels.
Okay.
So I think that there are still, and most importantly, some of the areas which didn't get impacted as badly in 2015. So I'll give you a classic example. Poisghat, where the residents of Ms. Jayalalitha, Mr. Rajinikanth and others live there. Forest Garden wasn't impacted so badly in 2015. This time, there is a huge problem and that's the heart of the city.
Yeah.
So there are areas within the heart of the city, some parts, Aziz Nagar and Kodambakkam, again, wasn't impacted so badly last time. So I think that there are significant problems which the civic machinery must attempt to solve.
Okay, so
Otherwise, we're going to
Vivek
have
Menon,
the same thing next year.
The final word, the biggest problem, of course, is this building massive real estate projects on lake beds. That's true of Bangalore, that's true of Chennai. And that's not a problem I think you can resolve anytime quickly. But at least cleaning up stormwater drains, ensuring that the natural water bodies are cleaned up, that there isn't waste that's clogging up your natural water bodies. At the end of the day, water needs a path to travel. If it doesn't have that path, it's going to wash away cars and buildings. It's water, right? You can't stop the flow of water. So what can be done to at least manage the next flood in Chennai or Bangalore better?
See, I think at the end of the day, especially in a place like Chennai, I think, detention facilities are extremely critical. When I say detention facilities, these could be large areas, swaths of land, which potentially, are either low-lying areas, much like lake beds. But, these are large lakes that need to be created, and, that land needs to be allocated. The government cannot basically, auction off those lands to private developers who just come and, completely pave out everywhere, every square inch of land, because what's going to happen is you're not going to get any infiltration. You're going to get complete, sheet flows coming off of these areas. And if you're not able to detain it, it's going to get into the low-lying areas and run on the roads. So I think there have to be large swaths of land that are dedicated towards, towards these detention facilities. That's the only way that you can actually hold back some of this water and then possibly release it into the rivers, into the thing, because you're at sea level. There's no other option.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Let's see.
One last point,
Yeah,
Zaka.
quickly.
The images that you see on screen, Zaka, from Pallikarnai was a marshland.
Yeah.
And it's been completely encroached, including by government offices. There are central government offices which are functioning in this area.
Correct.
So if you see what's happening on your screen, those areas were lakes 50 years ago.
Yeah. All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Sumant Raman, Vivek Menon. We'll see if any of these lessons are learned. I'm not so hopeful. Like I said, 2015 was a wake-up call. From whatever we've seen in the last 48 hours or so in the city of Chennai. It's more or less the same areas, the same problems, the magnitude perhaps worse in some parts. It doesn't seem like the lessons of 2015 have been learned at all 8 years on. That's a wrap.